Hello everyone, this is Showboat and welcome to part 4 of my vlog for June 22nd, 2016. In this video I will discuss anime! A whole lot of anime. In fact, about an hour's worth of anime, so sit back and enjoy as I discuss what I watched during my hiatus, which, thinking about it, is actually about 4 months and not 3 as I had been saying all the way thus far. But yeah, not only will I discuss what I had been watching over that period of time, but also give my thoughts now that it is the end of the spring season for shows that I have been watching. I will give all of my thoughts about all of the shows that I have been watching, so please enjoy the hour of anime. Alright, so I mentioned earlier that Black Desert Online got me behind on the shows that I've been watching this particular spring season. I say that even though summer season is going to start very, very shortly, and the summer shows are about the spring shows are about to end. But yeah, I was like about between 4 and 6 episodes behind across like 17 shows as a result of Black Desert Online, and for the most part, during the times I wasn't playing things like Stellaris, Dark Souls 3, and Outsmarted 4, I spent the remainder of my time both catching up on anime that of those shows I'd been watching. That took a good week or two to catch up on all that. But I've also been watching shows that I had been meaning to get around to watching that I hadn't watched originally. So I'll just briefly mention those particular shows that I finally got around to watching. First one being Tokyo Ghoul. I got around finally to watching both seasons of that. I think I'll agree with most people that the first season was better than the second. Although I do like that it actually had an end eventually. I enjoy, in particular, shows that actually end rather than ones that could potentially have additional seasons but never will. That actually makes me more angry than anything else, is when something ends and it's like there should be more, and then there's not ever going to be more. It's like, I shake my fist in frustration at you. Yeah, I enjoy Tokyo Ghoul. I think it's actually a pretty good one to watch. In fact, if you prefer something that's a bit more story driven than anything else, yeah, it's got rather gory action in it, but there's a lot of psychological elements to it and more advanced themes that I particularly enjoyed. Let's see, I also watched Excel World, which is one that I've been meaning to watch for a while because that one in particular was originally written by the same person who wrote Sword Art Online, and both of these technically take place in the same universe as each other, except Axel World is further in the future than Sword Art Online. But it's like the same timeline. At least that's as far as I can tell, as far as I'm aware. They're technically the same timeline. So, yeah, I watched everything that exists currently of Axel World, and I would definitely enjoy if there were further seasons of it. The problem being, I don't really think there will be anytime soon, to be completely honest. They did end it in such a way as to generally be satisfied if there never was anything else after what they made, which covers them, I guess, if there never will be. But I hope it one day does. I did enjoy Excel World, especially since I can I can sort of connect with the main character a little bit, in so much as we're both fat, but I think he's got it a bit worse off than me, considering his how he's actually a short fat kid, and I've always been a a rather tall fat guy, and no one deigned mess with me, to be completely honest. I was never the victim of anything too particularly severe when I was in school, at the very least. Technically still am, but when I was younger and in school. Particularly because I was big and I was smart, and people knew it, and they never messed with me because of it. So, anyway, I at least have somewhat of a connection there, but yeah, it's also really into games, which I like. But yeah, overall, I think it's somewhat okay. I mean, it's definitely not the best of shows, but it gets the job done. It does what it's set out to do, as far as I can tell. So yeah, there was that. There was One Punch Man that I finally got around to watching, and yes, it's worth watching. It is the most hilarious thing you will probably ever watch. Genuinely, it is. It is hilarious. I laughed so much watching that show. I didn't think I would. I didn't think I would. I knew it was inherently a parody, but I didn't think it was that good at its comedy. It's pretty amazing. I would definitely recommend watching that particular show. Although I don't really care for how they ended it, because they actually did end it in such a way that it could just not ever have any sequels to it, just based off of how they ended it. But it's like they ended it as not intending initially to see it go through additional seasons, but there is the potential there that they can just do whatever they want if they do. So yeah, there's that. And then there was one other one that I watched. It wasn't quite that particularly like up there in popularity, but it's one it's got a really long title. It's called "Problem Children Are Coming from Another World, Aren't They?" And there's no way you're going to get me to even attempt to pronounce the Japanese title of that particular one. It's okay, but it sort of like ends in the middle of things, sorta. And from what I can tell, there was never an intention to do any additional seasons, because apparently it was sort of like a companion series to the light novels. And apparently there's a manga of it that was also intended as a companion series to the light novels, and they never intended to go past like one season of it. So I guess I need to get the light novels if they're in English. As far as I can tell, they are being either or being published in English. So that's something I want to get now, because I actually want to know the rest of the story at some point, at the very least. Because damn, I don't like that it sort of ended right in the middle of things. I enjoyed what they made of it, but I don't enjoy how they sort of ended it in the middle, basically. It's like, come on, I wanted more. But no. And sadly to say, that's how it is with most titles these days. That being said, that was what I got through. There's unfortunately still a lot more that I wanted to get through, that I still want to get through, watching for the first time, I might add. I actually have to pull up my watch list to go through everything, because I have listed a lot of the longer series that I want to get through, but not some of the like shorter stuff. I say shorter stuff. I don't think I have a single show that's just a 12-episode season that's currently on my list. I think I've gone through everything that's like 12 episodes or so, like shorter, just single season stuff. Everything else is really long. In particular, the longest being Detective Conan, aka Case Closed. Yeah, that thing's like 121 episodes and counting, at least. Like over 300 hours of content, and it's like there's no way. There's like no way I'll get through that in any timely manner. Same goes for One Piece. That's another show that I would like to watch that I never watched. In fact, well, let's start with Detective Conan. Why do I want to watch Detective Conan? Well, there was a show called Magic Kaito, and there were some numbers after it. I forget the numbers after it. It's the most recent version of Magic Kaito that released, and it's set in the same universe as Detective Conan. In fact, they have the kid come in for an appearance in a few of the episodes in that series, and I liked that series, so I figured, well, I may as well watch, you know, the big series, which the person who wrote that is more well known for. So there's that. It's very, very long. Like, it's very, very long. So is One Piece. Now, that one I just want to watch out of its sheer popularity that I always see people talk about it. It's ongoing as well, and that one's like 746 episodes and counting. It's one where I considered buying the manga of at one point, but I figured since it's so long and unfinished and so expensive that I didn't bother with it because they don't have all of the story arcs and box sets. I think there's like 2 box sets for that one, if I'm not mistaken. I think One Piece has a couple box sets, but yeah, I was far more interested in Naruto at the time, which was ending and had like box sets released of all of its volumes. Which, by the way, I have. They're sitting right behind me on my bookcase. That's actually getting rather full. I need to stop at some point. My bookcase is actually surprisingly full. I can fit some more on it, but it's like, oh, I really filled this up nicely, didn't I? Uh, Moving on, there's also things like Bleach, another one out of sheer popularity that I would want to get through. That one's like 366 episodes. Thankfully, it's finished, so I don't have to worry about them adding more episodes to that one as well. And then there's one called Gintama, or Gintama, or however the heck you want to pronounce it. That one's like 265 episodes long as well, and also quite popular. Oh, and then there's like the whole of the Dragon Ball universe, the first series, Dragon Ball Kai, which is essentially the canon elements of Dragon Ball Z, like the actual non-filler content, which is what I'm far more interested in than the filler content from Dragon Ball Z, and then Dragon Ball Super, which is ongoing. So yeah, in fact, with the Dragon Ball series in general, at my age, I remember distinctively the airing of Dragon Ball Z on Cartoon Network during a time block known as, I think it's called Toonami. At least that was at the time. I remember there being a few iterations of Toonami when I was watching Cartoon Network, and when I was like in elementary school, and they would have Dragon Ball Z on, and I never really got into it as a kid. I really didn't particularly care too much about that particular show. I mean, I watched it only because it was the only thing on at that time block that was even remotely worth watching, and even then I didn't watch it every day. It was a sometimes sport kind of thing. That being said, I do specifically remember watching things like the original Sailor Moon and watching. I have to think about this for a second. Reboot. I remember Reboot. I really had gotten into Reboot back then. My gosh, and I watched the whole thing, all like Yeah, I watched all of that. That I was always there to watch Reboot when that one came on, and just by proxy, all the other shows that were like around in the Toonami time block, whenever whatever shows they had at the time, that I don't particularly remember all that well. All I really remember is Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z, and Reboot. And I don't really remember too well any of the others. Nothing really stuck out at the time. Moving on from wanting to get through the whole Dragon Ball franchise, I also want to get through the whole of, at the very least, the main universe of the Mobile Suit Gundam franchise. Like, because I watched Iron Blooded Orphans and I realized that one's actually set, like, it's a side universe kind of story, and I particularly enjoyed Iron Blooded Orphans, and I have been enjoying Unicorn RE0096 thus far. I realize that Unicorn is part of the main storyline and is actually at the end of the main storyline, so it's like there's a lot of things in that show that I don't really understand the full implications of because I haven't watched the original Mobile Suit Gundam at all. So at least I don't remember watching the original Mobile Suit Gundam at all. I know that one is actually even before my time. That one's particularly ancient at this point. So, yeah, it would be nice to go back and go through the whole of the main universe storylines from Mobile Suit Gundam. And on top of all of that, I still need to finish watching the rest of Naruto, which a while ago, like at least a year to a year and a half ago, I had taken the time to go through almost all of the initial Naruto storyline, but I stopped watching it part way through the filler episodes at the end of the series. Like, I watched every single episode up until that long stretch of filler at the very end. And even then, I got through some of that filler. I don't remember exactly what episode number I stopped off at. I will have to go in and find where I left it off at, but I technically nearly got through that whole thing. In fact, from a canon perspective, the only thing I really need to watch is the last episode before moving on to Shippuden, which I need to watch the whole thing of that, and that's really long as well. And ongoing, even though the manga series has been over for quite some time now. They keep adding filler to the show for some strange reason, even though they have the content to end the series. They're at this point they're literally milking it for all they can, which sucks. Royally sucks. I just want to see it end so that I can get to it and not have to worry about stopping in the middle of things. And then the last really big show is Fairy Tail that I need to get back to, because when I initially watched Fairy Tail, I caught myself up to it. Like, I watched the entirety of the original sequence, and then I started the 2014 sequence and watched up to basically the live episodes of that each week. And I stopped watching it after I think I got through the end of a side story arc when essentially Zodiac goes rogue, and that's basically all I'll really say about that. The Zodiac went a bit rogue, and that resolving that side story arc was as far as I got of the more recent series. And I realize that this most recent series is currently at its end, which is a particularly good time to get caught up with it. And as far as I can tell, it wasn't all that much comparatively that released since then. So, yeah, I think that might be one of the ones to start with, just to finish off that from the list of things. But there's even other things on my list that are also relatively long, not quite as long as those, but we're talking things like the Dot Hack series, like all of those shows, which while each one is like between 12 and 24 for the actual series, there's also like mini series that are like 4 episodes long, or OVAs, like a ton of OVAs. I think 26 is the longest of a single series, or no, 28 is the longest of a single series. Is 28, 26, and 12, and then like 4 and 3, and then a whole bunch of OVAs for that one. And then there's things like Death Note, which is actually technically the next thing on my list of, well, it's on my playlist of stuff to watch, and that's 37 episodes, and I want to watch that. I want to watch that. Definitely. Definitely. And this is all on top of keeping up with like the 17 shows that I've been keeping up with so far this season that are ending both this week and next. Of the ones that are ending, there's like 6 shows that I'm watching that will be continuing into summer, or at least continuing at some point. I don't know if they'll temporarily end them for the season or not, because I know some shows they like stopping after 12, resting for a season, and then starting off in that next season, which is actually what has happened to The Legend of Arslan this upcoming summer season, where they're going to have 8 episodes. I think it's 8 episodes playing in the summer season, which boggles my mind, but yeah, that's going to be a thing. But as far as I know, the show's Android, Ace Attorney, Kuromakuro, Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn, RE0, and Sosei no Onmyoji, or however the heck that's pronounced, are all continuing. In fact, that last one apparently has like 50 episodes that it's been greenlit for. And I was like, what the flying fuck? This show doesn't need 50 freaking episodes. There's other shows that are far more deserving of 50 episodes than this one. Ace Attorney is not one of them, and is one that I've actually stopped watching. Same thing happened to Ryoga, which was 12 episodes. It's over now. I stopped watching that one as of episode 2. I stopped watching Ace Attorney as of like episode 3-ish, when I realized that, for one, Ace Attorney is the exact same story as the games, and I didn't really feel like watching the game. It's the first game. It's actually exactly the story of the first game. So if you want to know the story of Ace Attorney, just play Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, and you'll get the entire story out of that. And it's actually a relatively short game, but they have stretched the entire story of Ace Attorney into 24 episodes. It boggles my mind why they would stretch it that much. It's like, you doesn't need it. And it's corny as all hell, and I don't like it. As for Mayoga, it wasn't my thing. Too many characters introduced in the first episode. I don't like when shows do that. You can only introduce a certain number of people at any given time and keep a cohesive narrative, and they did not do that in Mayoga. I mean, I think of stories that have a lot of characters, like Lost. Did they genuinely introduce all of their characters in the first episode? No. Did they genuinely introduce all of their characters by the end of the second episode? No. In fact, the whole of the initial seasons, and in fact, every season of Lost thereafter, had episodes that would focus on a single character. If you actually go back and watch Lost, and even other shows that have done the introduction of several characters very well, you'll realize that they actually focus on very few characters at any given time. Even though the whole cast is rather large, you may see all the characters there. The focus is very set on very few characters, and I did not get that feeling in the initial episodes of Mayoga. There was too much focus on too many characters at the same time. That's how I felt about that series in particular, and why I stopped watching it overall. All the other shows I've been watching have been fine, and I have genuinely enjoyed them. Things like Big Order, Boku no Hero Academia, Bungo Stray Dogs, Concrete Revolutio second season, which, by the way, is far better than season 1 in terms of how it handles the whole time thing. Because season 1 is extremely hard to follow because they keep shifting between time periods to try and tell a somewhat cohesive story that extends through time. Like season 1, it's like you had the events of a single storyline that happen over time, but it was really difficult to realize when you're in the past, when you're in the present, and when you're actually even further ahead, like future sort of stuff. It was hard. It was really hard to tell where are we technically in this timeline when they kept putting stuff from all these different time periods in season 1. Season 2, they had done a much better job at doing that. And actually, if you follow season 2 from beginning to end, you'll notice that time progresses. Like, time actually progresses, even if they occasionally have, like, what they did in season 2 was they would start an episode either in the past or in the future, and then the rest of the episode would be in between, sort of, or at a different time period, but it would be consistent through the entirety of the rest of the episode, which I particularly enjoyed. It kept things a lot smoother going forward, and then each episode would progressively move forward through time. Much better than season 1. I'm glad they at least acknowledged the issues with season 1 when they made season 2. I've also been following Android, as well as 100, which is actually now over, and I did particularly enjoy. It seemed to... I didn't really think it had much of a climax at the end. An event happens, but it wasn't like this big scary event that got resolved. It's just a thing that happened. And then it was like the end of that. It's like, I don't know. Cabinery of the Iron Fortress is also ending, I think. Yeah, it's ending. I'm pretty sure its last episode's coming up either this week or it's either already out by the time you see this video or something. I don't know. It's okay, but it hasn't blown me away by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's cool to look at and watch, but in terms of the actual content of the story, it's like, It's not anything too complex or deep, I'll be completely honest. It's okay. Speaking of things that are complex and deep, Kisniver is another one that I've been watching. This one is, the whole point is being complex and deep. You've got kids that have been connected by pain and also emotionally, and them dealing with that and the after effects of dealing with that, and it's been fascinating to watch. I've really enjoyed it. They're the ones that made, what's the name of it? Kill la Kill? No. What the freaking hell was the name of that show? Or was it? I forget. I completely forget. I don't know. It's a story about clothes. Yeah, actually, if you sum up the previous show that they did, it was actually a story about sentient alien clothes. Yeah, they do some weird stuff. They really do some weird stuff. Um, Next up, Kuromakuro. It's 26 episodes, so we're only partway through it. It hasn't really gone anywhere yet. I need it to go somewhere like soon in terms of story because it hasn't progressed all that much. Magi Adventures of Sinbad. Love it. It's in a universe that I actually particularly enjoy. I watched Magi, Labyrinth of Magic, and Kingdom of Magic, which are its two quote seasons that currently exist. I am happy that we're getting backstory for Sinbad. That's the whole point of this show. It's actually a side series. Yeah, I think the guy who wrote it as like a side series, like prequel type ish series. Just gives the backstory of one of the characters from the show. It's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy it quite a lot. I would like to eventually see a season 3 of Magi, but I am happy they did Sinbad, like Adventures of Sinbad. I want to see season 3 of Magi. I want it. This makes me want to see a season 3 of Magi. But now I also like Adventures of Sinbad, and I would like to see a season 2 of Adventures of Sinbad. So it's like, oh my god, this universe is so well done. I love it. Then there's also Gundam Unicorn, which is a thing that exists as an OVA series that I found out about. But apparently this show, they're like adding content. This show is apparently exactly the OVA series with like updated graphics and a bit more content. And that's it. They're telling the exact same story. They're just adding a little bit more to it and making it look a little bit prettier than the original OVA series. So if you actually want to know the entire story of Unicorn, you can watch the OVA series. So that's an interesting little bit of trivia that I found out. I was like, oh, I did not realize this initially. But since I've been watching the show, I guess I'll continue watching the show. And the show has been okay so far, and I may as well continue it. RE0, by its very nature, hasn't seen a lot of progression over these first initial episodes. It's a 25 episode season for good reason, because it does things with time properly. I'm actually quite happy that they're dealing with time properly in this one. Don't even get me started on the Charlotte thing. It makes me angry. But in RE0, when our main character dies, it's like Groundhog's Day. He goes back to a certain moment, and he has the opportunity to try and make it so that he doesn't die again. And everything resets, but he remembers everything that he did before he died. So it's been an interesting experience because most of what you're getting, at least here at the start, hasn't been a progression of time. It has been a development of the main character, which has been fantastic. It's been a great thing to watch and experience over the course of this season so far, and I really am looking forward to watching the remainder of it. Moving on, there's still several more of the shows I've been watching. There's Saisen Cerberus, which is average. It's okay, and it doesn't have any particularly deep themes to it. It's something to watch, and that's about it, to be honest. That's all I can really say about it. It's just something to watch. I mean, it looks cool, but it feels very familiar. Speaking of feeling familiar, that show I mentioned earlier, 100 is like copy paste of several other harem type shows that exist. It's exactly the same as a lot of other stuff, and I'm sure if you start watching that one at the beginning of it, you'll see what I mean. If you've seen shows like it before, it's exactly the same. Android is a little bit different. Because I didn't really talk about that one, and I didn't really talk about Bungo Stray Dogs or Boku no Hero Academia or Big Order, so I'll talk brief about those. Android is a 24 episode season where things are actually coming to a bit of a climax. I'm actually quite happy that they've decided to actually have something in the middle of the series as we approach the end of spring season, rather than having nothing like in some of the other shows that are longer form. Things sort of like Kurumukuro currently, and things like Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn currently, and even RE0 currently. There's and even Sosei no Onmyuji currently. A lot of those shows don't currently have like a climactic element going on here at the end of this particular season, and I'm glad that Android does. It seems like they're actually getting to an end of an actual arc of the story, which I'm surprised about. I'm happy about, but overall the show is again average. There's nothing particularly deep about its themes. It's actually very predictable about where this is going. So yeah, it's just something to watch. Bungo Stray Dogs actually has some character development in it that's actually useful. You should watch it. It's actually pretty interesting. It has an interesting art style to it. The main character's a tiger. At least he can turn into a tiger. And the way that he's drawn and his animations plays up like a cat likeness to him. Like he has a belt that's far too long, and it has this piece that's sticking out, and they always draw it like a tail. They always draw the extension of his belt as a tail, and it moves around and does things like a tail as he's moving around and like investigating things and all that stuff. So it's been an interesting ride to say the least. Boku no Hero Academia is just a fun superhero show that you should watch. That's basically it. It's actually pretty good. I think it's the most popular show of the season, if I'm not mistaken, and with good reason. I mean, it's not a particularly deep show by any stretch of the imagination, but it does have a lot of character development of the main character in it, which is pretty nice, and it's something I want to see in more shows rather than just plot. So, yeah, there's that, which is actually a 13 episode season. And then there was Big Order, which was a 10 episode season. It told its story. It was a little bit on the convoluted side, a bit hard to follow at times, at least for me. I didn't particularly care a lot for it. It was a thing that existed. I would consider it a bit below average, to be honest. I didn't care for it too awfully much. Moving on, I talked about Size and Cerberus. So Shonen Maid, it's just a comedy, half hour of comedy without too much development or anything like that. Just watch it if you want to laugh. That's about it. Just laugh. It's funny. It succeeds at being funny. It's actually not bad. You should watch it if you want to have a laugh, because it is funny. Sosei no Onmyuji, or however the hell you're pronouncing it. It's 50 episodes. At least last time I checked, it was supposed to be 50 episodes, confirmed by a streaming service that streams it in China. That has never been wrong about how long their shows are that they're going to be streaming. So 50 episodes is what they've said. At least the last time I read that they said something about it. I don't think it deserves to be that long. Partly because of its nature in particular. I mean, how the hell are they going to play up this goof of the main characters that are obviously very young, and they're supposed to eventually get married and have a child that essentially saves the world from a threat that the two parents will fight against their whole lives together. So this is supposed to be them meeting and being together, and then having basically everyone in their world that's an adult trying to get them to be together and try to work together and all this other stuff, trying to get them to fall in love with each other and all this other crap, and it's just weak. Weak is what it is. It looks cool. That's all it is something that looks cool. Other than that, the actual story element of it is pretty damn weak. It's pretty damn weak. And since they already revealed they're supposed to get married to each other and have this kid that will save the world, then what the fuck is the point of them? I want to see the story of the kid saving the world, not the story of the parents before they got together or were forced to get together to have the kid and fight enemies along the way. I mean, come on. Let's see. Asterisk War, second season. I was so sad initially when I learned that they were going to be bringing Asterisk War back for a second season and not Chivalry of a Failed Knight, which were together in season 1 and told very, very similar stories. In fact, when those two were showing, I would often confuse their titles with each other. Like Chivalry of a Failed Knight and Asterisk War were so similar in their story. Like there were so many parallels between them. It's like, oh my god, why would they ever do this in the same season? And in my honest opinion, Chivalry of a Failed Knight told the better story. But it was Asterisk War that got a second season, and that disappointed me greatly. Like, greatly. I really disliked the fact that Asterisk War had got a second season over Chivalry of a Failed Knight. That being said, season 2 of Asterisk War, I think, ended up being a bit better than season 1. And they have set themselves up for a season 3, of which I think they didn't need at the end of this season. I think they could have stretched out some of the story elements in season 2, in the actual meat of season 2, and left basically the last 2 episodes of this show, or maybe even the last 3, for a season 3, because the whole point of season 2 was the 2 main characters winning the Phoenix Festa. That's the whole point of this particular season, and they do that by like episode 10, 9 or 10, and after that it's set up for a season 3 where they will be taking part in a festa called the Grips Festa, which is a bigger team event, essentially, from what I can tell. So, whereas Phoenix Festa was teams of 2, Grips is like 5 teams of 5, which, okay. And apparently from what I read, the series gets better once the Grips Festa happens. So, part of me wants to see a season 3, but part of me still wants to see a fucking season 2 of Chivalry of a Failed Knight. I mean, oh my god. I mean, yeah, I suppose they're different studios that made them, but I mean, come on. Come on. At this point, I don't think Asterisk War has been approved for a season 3, but they set it up with clear intentions that there will be a season 3 of this show. It's very action oriented. There was actually a good amount of character development in season 2 of Asterisk War. I do believe Asterisk War season 2 is better than season 1 in nearly every respect. They seem to have learned from season 1 going into season 2, which I can appreciate. In fact, a number of series that were, in fact, I think of the seasons that had a season 2 this particular season, both of them learned their lessons from season 1, from issues they had. I'm talking about Concrete Revolution and Asterisk War. And then finally, Ushio and Tora. Well, Ushio and Tora 2, technically. 13-episode season to finish off its main storyline. It didn't really have anything to learn from its first season because it didn't really have anything too particularly wrong with it to begin with, seeing as how this entire series is a remake of an older series of the same name. So that's just been a fun ride to experience, although I do believe that this end fight has dragged on for far too long. This final fight, at this point, it's like, please finish. Rather than any feeling of excitement that it's finishing, I just want it to end. It's like, please just end. I'm sort of tired of you stretching this at this point. So, yeah, those are the shows I've been watching that have been live through the season. I don't know if I've talked about them before in videos that I've put up. I don't really care at this point. I guess you can consider that my like end of season thoughts about the shows I've been watching so far, and I'm realizing that this is like over like about 50 minutes now of me just talking about anime. It's like once I get started talking about anime, I can just keep talking on and on and on and on and on. And you can tell from my voice too at this point that it's actually quite tired. So I think I'm going to end it off there. But with that, I would like to thank you all for watching, if you have been watching. And, yeah, I will see you all on regular videos, maybe at some point. I will see you all then.